Okay, Josh.
And to the angel of the church in Philadelphia write, these things says he who is holy, he who is true, he who has the key of David, he who opens and no one shuts, and shuts and no one opens. I know your works. See, I have set before you an open door, and no one can shut it. For you have a little strength, have kept my word, and have not denied my name. Indeed, I will make those of the synagogue of Satan, who say they are Jews and are not, but lie. Indeed, I will make them come and worship before your feet, and to know that I have loved you. Because you have kept my command to persevere, I also will keep you from the hour of trial which shall come upon the whole world, to test those who dwell on the earth. Behold, I am coming quickly. Hold fast what you have, that no one may take your crown. He who overcomes, I will make him a pillar in the temple of my God, and he shall go out no more. I will write on him the name of my God, and the name of the city of my God, the new Jerusalem, which comes down out of heaven from my God. And I will write on him my new name. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches.
All right. So how does Christ describe himself here? He is what?
Holy.
He is the words of the Holy One, true one, who what?
Who has the keys of David.
Has the keys of David, who opens and will not shut. Now, the keys of David goes back to Isaiah, where there was a certain man that was given the keys to the temple and stuff like that. What happens here is, again, symbolically, he says, I give you the keys of David, who opens and no one will shut, who shuts and no one will open. What?
No.
Oh, I thought you had a hand up.
See,
huh?
It's just front and back, Alpha and Omega.
This, right. This church here was just bubbling. But they were small. Very much like the church of Smyrna. You know, they were small, and this church here was being persecuted. This church here too was being persecuted. There was people in that town that were saying, hey, look, you know, they were trying to get the Christians in trouble. Again, the Jews, who are the synagogue of Satan. You know, basically they didn't have a relationship with God in the first place. And not only did they not have a relationship with God, but even though they had the name Jew on their names, you know, they wanted to keep their status. We talked about this. But here he says, you have little power, and yet you have kept my word and have not denied my name. It's interesting, you know. Again, Paul writes, he says, my grace is sufficient for you. My power is made perfect in what? In our weakness. See, what was happening is this church wasn't depending upon themselves, as we'll talk about here in a second. This church wasn't depending upon what they did or anything else. They were depending upon God. And because they were weak, because they were small, God's able to use it wide open. He says, hey, this door is going to be wide open. You're going to be able to share my word. You're going to continue to grow as a church. Not in numbers, but his word was going to begin to expand out. Sometimes we don't realize, and again, I want you to, if you ever get a chance, go read the bibliography of Billy Graham. Because Billy Graham didn't, you know, wasn't like, oh, he's an instant preacher. But he went to a revival of a pastor, of an evangelist that we don't even know who that, I mean, it tells you down the Billy Graham library who it was. But he's not some big name like Dwight Mooney or anything else. I mean, it's just an evangelist. But that evangelist, God used to open Billy Graham's ears up. And the Holy Spirit got inside of Billy Graham's heart. And you look at what Billy Graham has done. So sometimes what happens, this church, it was standing there before God. It was small in numbers. But the door to be able to share the gospel message to the world was wide open. And as Jesus says, hey, I'm the one who will open the doors and nobody can shut it. But I'm also the one that can shut the door that no one will open. So for real, so before this church, the doors were wide open. He says, behold, I will make those who are in the synagogue of Satan, who say they are Jews, but lie, behold, I will make them come down and bow before your feet, and they will learn that I love you. I can't imagine what that's going to be like. But this is going back now. This is, you know, so a lot of times in the beginning it's referring to who Christ was in chapter 1. In the end, it refers to what's happening towards the end of in the book of Revelation. What happens here is that Christ is going to come back. And those who have been part of the synagogue of Satan, even at that time, are going to sit there and mourn because they're going to realize that God's going to take away them. And there's going to be this millennium kingdom that God's going to rule. But these people, before all that happens, they're going to be the ones that are going to be struck down by the word of the Lord. And they're going to sit there and recognize, he was right. He was right. And it's not like, oh, you know, kind of happy he's right. It's going to be a weeping and tearing of tears. Because they're going to realize that, hey, and just as he says here, they will come down, they're going to bow before your feet, and they will learn that I love you. Nothing can snatch us away from God's love. Because you have kept my word and being patient, endurance, I will keep you from the hour of trial. Now again, he's already told Thyatira, I'm coming. Now what he's doing, and this is a clear reference to the rapture. He says, I'm going to keep you from the hour of trial that is coming upon the whole world. Now again, I'm not going to go into a whole lot. We've talked about the rapture and stuff like that before. But just to be clear, I'm a firm believer that God is going to protect his church from either the whole tribulation period, maybe this whole 7 years, or in the middle of the great raft, and the great raft and the final tribulation that's going to happen as we see in the middle of the book of Revelation. God's going to keep us away from that. There's no doubt in my mind. I'm not going to dicker on when it was and everything else, but I know a promise. You know, God's told Paul, he said, I won't, you know, we won't face that God's wrath. He's telling this church here that, hey, I'm going to, and that's why, you know, again, I keep looking, and when I read these letters, well, his hour of that wrath hasn't come yet. So for Philadelphia, they're definitely not going to go through because they're dead and alive and they're with Christ right now. But the church of Philadelphia that's been going through the church ages, they're holding on to it. And I really do believe there's going to be a time, this church here, and I do believe there is Philadelphia churches today. They're not big, they're small. In fact, a lot of times, I'm going to get ahead of myself, I can do this. When we talk about Sardis and when we talk about Laodicea, we're going to see that these churches had name only, or they could care less who it was, and it was all about themselves. And so what happens is that Christ, you know, he's not even a part of that church, of either one of those. But for this church, and if you look today, and I'm going to get ahead of myself, but if you look today, and you see what's going on in a lot of the churches today and how the compromising is going on. And not only compromising, but it's gone past compromising. It's gotten to the place that they're totally dead.
It's in the next generation.
Huh?
It's in the next generation.
Yeah.
Right.
And what's happening is, and you know, I've watched the Episcopal Church, I've watched the Methodist Church, you know, I'll watch and see what's going on. It's these small groups of people who've come from Africa and other countries that are coming to these conferences in America, and then you have this growing group of people in America saying, oh, you have got to allow this to happen, the sexual immorality to happen. And these guys that are coming from these small churches and small countries are going, no way, no way. You know, so yes, there are small churches very much today that are like Philadelphia. The door's wide open to them. In fact, I remember one time a pastor that I was listening to, he says there's actually people coming from South Korea that are coming to the United States to actually be missionaries to the United States because we've gotten so far away from Christ.
Try to bring it around.
Yeah. So he says to him, he says, but hold fast, keep my word. I will keep you from that hour of trial which is coming to the whole world, to try those who dwell on the earth. And I am coming soon, so hold fast to what you have, so that no one may seize your crown. To the one who conquers, I will make him a pillar in my temple of God. Okay? What he's basically saying, he's not talking about you're going to become a stone pillar or something like that. You're going to be a part of that new Jerusalem. When we'll see this in Revelation, when the new Jerusalem comes down, it's prepared as the bride. So who's the new Jerusalem? It's the bride. It's the church of God. It's the bride of Christ. And so we're a pillar within that bride. We're a pillar. We're standing up. You know, we're seen as, hey, We are somebody. Even though they were small numbers, they are becoming now a pillar within God's body of believers. He says, I'll make you a pillar in my temple. Never shall you go out, and I will write on him the name of my God, the name of the city of my God, which is New Jerusalem. And we'll see this later on, and also the name, my own new name. He who hears, let him hear what the Spirit has said to the churches. Now to the church of Laodicea. And this is probably the saddest one of them all. Because I honestly do believe that we see in America